Even apart from the recent Epstein file leaks, there are a lot of other celebrities who are involved with him. Honestly, Hollywood is worse than you can even imagine. I could still name quite a few people.
Honest and true depiction of child ever portrayed by telling my own story in a very real way. I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be.
So in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Standing on the most watched platform in Hollywood, both of them were speaking the exact same truth, and both of them were disregarded.
There was a circle of older men that surrounded themselves around this group of kids. And they all had either their own power or connections to great power in the entertainment industry.
A comedian, a kid star turned activist. Different platforms, different decades, different tactics. However, no one is making the connection here. They were both pointing at this identical gadget, and that machine has been going in Hollywood for a very, very long time. Here's the thing with truth in Hollywood. It doesn't vanish simply because powerful people want it to. It simply gets louder, and just now, two very unique voices. One you'd anticipate, one you surely wouldn't have been saying the same thing for years. Corey Feldman. You already know the name, child star. One of the most iconic faces of 1980s film. The Goonies, Stand By Me, The Lost Boys, Gremlins. He wasn't simply renowned. He was a cultural figure before he even entered adolescence. And with him, his closest friend and co-star, Corey Haim. Together they were the two Coreys, teen heartthrobs, box office gold. And behind that, two youngsters were ringed by predators who had unfettered access and zero responsibility.
But you've lived dark Hollywood. Yeah. Like, not the mythology version, like the real version of dark Hollywood.
And I didn't even realize it until I put my documentary out. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized how real it really was, how much of a force it really was, and how much power and control they have over media, technology, everything that we do. I'm like, but you're doing the Epstein documentary, or doing this. It's about kids being victims. That's the part they don't want to admit.
Ricky Gervais, British comedian, creator of The Office, one of the sharpest, sarcastic brains of his time. Not a victim, not an activist, but a guy standing on the Golden Globe stage in front of every major Hollywood executive and power player and choosing very intentionally to speak the silent part loud. These two guys never coordinated, never sat down together to plot. But if you put their public declarations side by side, you find they've been describing the same society, the same culture, the same quiet that shielded the same individuals. And now, with the Epstein files swirling, with the Diddy case making headlines, with the Quiet on Set documentary breaking Nickelodeon open, the public is finally catching up to what both of them already knew. Let's start from the beginning. Because to understand why what they're saying means so much right now, you have to grasp what Hollywood truly was and what it still may be. The 1980s is recognized as the golden period of the kid star, and from the outside, it looked precisely like that. Films like E.T., The Goonies, Stand By Me, they weren't simply hits. They were cultural touchstones. Kids were the core of Hollywood's major tales, and viewers adored them. But Feldman portrays something else altogether occurring behind that veil.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
That term widespread is the one that counts. Because what Feldman is describing isn't one predator slipping through the gaps. He's describing a full ecology. Agents, managers, producers. The same individuals who were meant to be the gatekeepers safeguarding young talent were actually the ones granting access. They controlled the auditions, the predetermined timetables, the employment chances. Parents were kept at a remove, persuaded that this was simply how the business operated. And youngsters too young and too innocent to know better were taught the same thing. That term widespread is the one that counts. Because what Feldman is describing isn't one predator slipping through the gaps. He's describing a full ecology. Agents, managers, producers. The same individuals who were meant to be the gatekeepers safeguarding young talent were actually the ones granting access. They controlled the auditions, the predetermined timetables, the employment chances. parents were kept at a remove, persuaded that this was simply how the business operated. And youngsters, too young and too innocent to know better, were taught the same thing.
Trauma of that pedophilia contributed to Haim's death.
There's one person to blame in the death of Corey Haim, and that person happens to be a Hollywood mogul. And that person needs to be exposed, but unfortunately I can't be the one to do it. But the person that knows who did it and knows who he is watching right now, I guarantee you.
Feldman was 14. He believes he didn't even completely grasp what was going at the time. He didn't have the structure to perceive it. That's not naivety. That's precisely how these systems function. They bet on the victim being too young, too dependent, and too isolated to comprehend or report what's being done to them. And here's the bit that makes this distinct from simply a personal story. Feldman claims this wasn't occurring in isolation. Other youngsters were going through the same thing. The same names kept emerging across various tales, different settings, different years. It was, in his own words, a system, an industry-wide architecture of access and silence. Now let's speak about Corey Haim, since this narrative is essentially about him. Feldman and Haim became closest friends the manner that only individuals who've endured a certain sort of suffering can. When Haim initially opened up to Feldman about what happened to him, Feldman learned they'd both been through comparable circumstances. That mutual understanding formed the basis of their relationship. But it also meant they were both carrying the same weight, the same secrets, with nowhere to put them. Haim began drinking during the making of a movie named Lucas, and he was an adolescent, and it was on the same picture, according to Feldman, that something occurred to Haim that would influence the remainder of his brief life.
You know, as a little boy, and he told me that, you know, it was his co-star, and he told me that it was Charlie Sheen that did it.
According to the documentary, Haim relayed this tale to several individuals throughout the years. At least a dozen others in their group had heard the narrative straight from Haim. It wasn't a secret he buried. It was a secret nobody around him was courageous enough to act on. Common knowledge. Everybody knew, and nobody did anything. That line is more distressing than nearly everything else in the narrative because it suggests the stillness wasn't unintentional. It was a decision made over and over again by person after person who decided that keeping their own standing in the business meant more than safeguarding a kid. Haim's addiction evolved from beer to marijuana to crack cocaine. By 18, he was in rehab. He became, in his own words, a chronic relapser. He died on March 10, 2010, aged barely 38 years old. The official cause of death was pneumonia. Feldman thinks, and it's very hard to dispute with him, that the childhood trauma and the addiction it produced were the true cause of death. The papers indicated pneumonia, but the narrative began on a movie set when Haim was 13. Now, here's where the plot turns. Same Hollywood, new decade, different message. When Ricky Gervais hosted the Golden Globes, nobody expected him to do what he did. He stood in front of the most powerful room in the entertainment world, and slowly, joke after joke, informed them that he understood precisely who they were.
If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So, if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and off, okay? We're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg.
He informed them he knew about their activities. He mentioned Ronan Farrow, the writer who'd been relentlessly uncovering abuse in the business, and stated every single person in the room was afraid of him. Nor a criminal, nor a predator. Your pal Ricky Gervais was standing in a room full of individuals who he was saying had intimate links with Jeffrey Epstein, and he stated that on live television, on the most viewed award event of the year. And the room fell silent. Now think about what Corey Feldman was saying virtually at the exact same moment. In March 2020, only months after the Golden Globe show, Feldman aired his documentary Asterix, My Truth, The Rape of Two Coreys Asterix. He'd spent 3 years building it. He'd spent $1.30 million of his own money. He'd collected witnesses, written stories, and identified names.
People in this industry, but there's also a lot of really, really sick, corrupt people in this industry. And there are people in this industry who have gotten away with it for so long that they feel they're above the law. And that's got to change. That's got to stop.
Two guys, one with a microphone on a comedy stage, one with a camera and a lifetime of suffering, both aiming at the same object. A culture of quiet so deep and so extensive that it took thousands of people to preserve it. And everyone was more comfortable criticizing the one individual ready to speak than addressing the system that made the silence essential. What occurred the night of Feldman's documentary debut is one of those instances that provokes questions without ever conclusively resolving them. And the questions themselves are the tale. 400 people crowded into a showing in Los Angeles, standing room only. The aim was to webcast the documentary internationally concurrently with the debut. Feldman had been building to this moment for years. 15 minutes in, he came racing down the aisle, accompanied by security personnel. He seized the microphone. The website has collapsed. Was it truly sabotaged? Or was it merely a traffic congestion from too many people attempting to listen in at once? Nobody has proved either side, but here's what we do know. A guy who had been constantly ignored, discredited, and coerced to keep quiet for years was now going to disclose his proof to the world.
Do you have any comments on P. Diddy's situation? Have you been to his parties before?
Have I been to his parties? No, I never went to his parties.
No?
No, man.
You never get invited to go to his party?
I think I was a little old.
Well, no, you're not old, man. You look young.
No, I think I was a little old to be invited, is my point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. I've never been to any of his parties. I've never met the guy. I don't know any of those people. But it's disgusting, and I'm so grateful that justice is being served. And I really hope that there's a continuation of this and all of these scumbags get taken down.
Corey Feldman has been warning Hollywood about Leonardo DiCaprio's links to Epstein for years, but he was disregarded, silenced, and insulted. However, current investigations and document releases are verifying his assertions, showing a troubling system of code word exchanges and cover-ups among Hollywood elite circles. This now raises the question, exactly how tied to Epstein was Leonardo DiCaprio? Corey Feldman believes he knows. For almost 3 decades, Corey Feldman has been sounding the alarm, a former child star alerting the public about a dangerous network working inside Hollywood. A network strongly established and protected by prominent persons has been connected to the famed Jeffrey Epstein criminal organization. Corey Feldman rocketed to popularity in the 1980s, appearing in landmark films The Goonies, Stand By Me, and Gremlins. To the public, he symbolized innocence and childhood. But behind the scenes, something entirely different was occurring. Feldman was surrounded by a coterie of elder guys with enormous influence and connections. These guys utilized their positions to prey on young performers, regarding access to youngsters as a commodity. Corey even once claimed that the largest problem in Hollywood is PDFs. Feldman defined this as a system, not a few of isolated instances, but a self-sustaining structure protected by industry allegiance, financial power, and enforced quiet. When he sought to uncover this network, he was attacked with charges of instability and dishonesty. They dubbed him a conspiracy theorist and sought to suppress him, and they nearly succeeded. But suddenly something has shifted, and people are seeing that Corey has been correct all along. Everyone who branded Corey a liar throughout the years owes him a tremendous apology. He was correct all along. Bless this dude. He had no concept how much he changed the globe. How I wish he could expose these people. No kid should ever have to go through this. Also credit to Corey for not enabling these sickos to win. He is here and alive, and that makes him a survivor. Corey Feldman has lately remarked that the Epstein controversy has impacted the public's perspective of elite social circles. Previously, elite events and strong alliances were considered as glamorous and unquestionable. Now, every former link is investigated, and celebrities are more careful about their public appearances. He defined this transition as a societal attitude where certain prominent personalities look nervous. As debates about strong networks get louder, publicists are carefully constructing storylines, directing interviews, and managing reputations. Because the issue everyone is asking now is, who knew what, and when did they know it? And that gets us to Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio has been noted as someone who loves attending private events, especially those tied to Epstein's social circles. Corey highlighted images that seem suspicious, showing DiCaprio in close to other persons at these events, raising suspicions about what occurred. But this is where Corey is cautious. He was clear that being referenced in public talks, or living in the same social circles as someone ultimately exposed for crimes, does not imply culpability. He underlined the necessity of openness, and advised against conjecture without proof. Questions, not charges, but questions that need to be answered. So what do the Epstein papers truly say about Leonardo DiCaprio? In June 2009, a British lawmaker reached out to Epstein, seeking prospective endorsement possibilities for DiCaprio in non-US countries such as India, China, Japan, and Russia. To be clear, this reveals just that someone contacted Epstein seeking business-related guidance. It does not appear that DiCaprio had any personal interaction or communication with Epstein. Media analysis of these papers underlines that although DiCaprio's name appears, it is exclusively in the context of this commercial investigation. The records also contain numerous more names, politicians, corporate executives, and public personalities, some of whom are named without proof of any criminal action. But it becomes more complex. Previously revealed court records and witness testimony suggest that Epstein routinely name-dropped high-profile celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, sometimes alleging contacts that were never established in the archives. However, it does not indicate that interactions exist. Witnesses stressed that they never physically met these celebrities and were merely recounting what they heard. Epstein's inclination to talk about connections was part of his social strategy, a tactic to impress prospective victims and business partners. Many of these statements were eventually rejected or explained by representatives of the persons concerned. But the question still persists. The appearance of DiCaprio's name in such a high-profile document inevitably causes attention. When celebrities appear in huge document dumps connected to severe crimes, people typically speculate much beyond what the evidence suggests. Questions emerge concerning trips to Epstein's private estates, possible participation, or links. However, there is presently no verifiable evidence to substantiate these assertions about DiCaprio. He is not tied to any travel, communication, or activities relating to Epstein's unlawful conduct. But this incident illustrates a bigger concern, according to Corey. Yes, the data were published, but at the same time, various conspiracy theories also disseminated extensively, diluting the focus of the issue. Here's what Corey worries about. If people are given too much incorrect information, when they eventually reach the truth, they no longer know what to trust. Since everything begins to appear like another conspiracy theory, that is the goal. Flood the zone with misinformation, so that when genuine proof arrives, no one can distinguish the difference. A technique of uncertainty aimed to protect the strong. Thousands of individuals in Hollywood purportedly had knowledge of these networks for years, but stayed quiet owing to fear, allegiance, or insinuation. This system imposes quiet via career risks, reputation loss, and in certain circumstances, everlasting silence. Names Feldman has identified in the past have reappeared in separate investigations, which he views as indication of larger trends over decades. New charges against numerous celebrities have also surfaced throughout time, with overlapping locations and repeated tactics stated in different instances. The same areas, the same approaches, new names. Epstein may be gone, but doubts about the larger network persist. Investigations and document releases continue to expose more information, more people, and more links. Despite enormous personal sacrifice, Feldman is determined to speaking up. His documentary effort marked just the beginning, and he continues to collect testimonials and facts, stating the complete tale is still emerging. Feldman has already talked about abuse in Hollywood and has long highlighted concerns about industry secrecy and exploitation. Every time he was fired, he maintained his stand. According to this approach, the network he depicts is firmly anchored and maintained by strong interests. However, rising public attention and continuous discoveries have made it difficult for quiet to maintain. More voices are coming forward. More papers are being unsealed. More inquiries are being asked. The scenario reflects a deeper cultural change surrounding reputation, transparency, and responsibility. In this new context, appearance alone is no longer enough. Public trust increasingly relies on transparency. As investigations continue, the hope is that truth and accountability will triumph and that victims will be heard. This story is still evolving, and public attention remains concentrated as fresh information continues to surface.